The first time I woke up wrapped around my best friend, I thought I was still dreaming. There was this hazy half second where I didn't know whose hair was in my mouth or why my arm had gone numb, and then it all sharpened. Jess's familiar shampoo, citrusy and a little floral, the weight of her leg thrown over mine, my own hand resting low on her stomach like it had been there forever. Sunlight was squeezing through the gap in my curtains, catching the dust in the air. Her breath was warm on my collarbone. I lay completely still, brain rebooting like an old laptop, while every rule I'd drawn for myself over a decade of friendship quietly burst into flames. The night before had started with a text. Hey, are you home? Then, before I could answer, can I come over, like now? I was already in sweatpants on the couch, Netflix politely judging me for still watching. I sat up, heart beating faster in that way it does when Jess is involved, even when I pretend it isn't about her. Yeah, I'm here. Doors unlocked, I replied, and three dots popped up so fast it was like she'd been waiting, thumb hovering. By the time I stood to clear the coffee table of takeout containers, my front door flew open. Jess stepped inside my apartment like a storm that had finally found something to break on. Her mascara was smudged under her hazel eyes, auburn hair escaping the messy bun at the back of her head. She was still in her work clothes, black jeans, white blouse half untucked, leather jacket hanging off one shoulder. He cheated, she said. No hello, just those two words, and then she was in my arms. I'm 28. I've known Jess since we were both 18, and terrified freshmen being herded through orientation at the university, clinging to our name tags and free tote bags. She'd made some dumb joke about our econ professor looking like a raccoon, and I'd laughed too hard. We sat together on the first day of class and never really stopped. For 10 years, Jess has been filed in my brain under straight, chaotic, likes men with bad tattoos and worse communication skills. But she's also filed under the first person I came out to as bi at 2 in the morning because she was the only one I trusted not to make it weird. She didn't, not exactly. She hugged me, said she loved me, asked if I had a crush on her in a joking tone that wasn't entirely a joke. I laughed it off, said, of course not. We didn't talk about it again. Now she was shaking against me, her face buried in the crook of my neck, breath hitching. He cheated? I repeated, because I needed to say something, and that's what my mouth picked. With that girl from the bar, she said, voice muffled. The one he said I was being paranoid about. I found the messages. Maya, I feel so stupid. You're not stupid, I said automatically, rubbing circles into her back. Jess is only about an inch shorter than me, but when she's like this, small, folded in on herself, freckles standing out stark against her pale skin, I feel like I need to wrap my whole body around her just to hold her together. I pulled back enough to see her face. Her eyeliner, usually sharp enough to cut glass, was smeared. Her hazel eyes, ringed with red, met mine in that way that always feels like she's looking directly into the center of me. Can I stay here tonight? She asked. I told him to get out, but he was still there when I left, and I can't be in that apartment right now. Of course. I didn't even hesitate. You know you don't have to ask. She nodded, swallowing hard. There was a damp patch on my t-shirt where her tears had soaked in. For some reason, that anchoring little detail made my own eyes sting. Okay, she said, taking a breath that sounded like it had sharp edges. I brought wine. Of course she had. She nudged her overnight bag with one foot, and a bottleneck poked out of the side pocket. An hour later, my coffee table was a graveyard of tissue balls and half-empty glasses. The remains of a frozen pizza cooled between us. Netflix played something in the background with the volume low. Neither of us were watching. Jess's feet were in my lap, toes painted chipped dark red, and I was absent-mindedly tracing circles over her ankle with my thumb. I should have seen it coming, she said for maybe the 10th time. Like, who actually says you're crazy when you ask them a completely normal question? Men, I said. Men say that. She snorted, then hiccuped, then laughed in this broken way that made me want to scoop the sound up and fix it. God, she said, wiping her eyes. You warned me about him. I hate that you were right. You're always right about my guys. How is that fair? There are a lot of data points at this point, I said, trying for lightness. I've had practice. She kicked at me weakly. Ugh, I wish I liked nice guys. You don't, I said. You like chaos. It's your brand. I like you, she blurted, then immediately groaned and threw an arm over her face. Not like that. I mean, obviously, I like you. You're my best friend. Oh my God, why am I like this? Something hot and stupid fluttered under my ribs anyway. I pretended to focus on refilling her wine. Tragic, I said. You're stuck with me. She peeked out at me from under her arm. You know what I mean? I did, and I didn't. That's the thing about Jess. She walks a dangerous line between affectionate and something else, and I've spent a decade pretending I couldn't see it. Like the way she'll lean into me at bars, her hand on the small of my back as she laughs into my ear. The way she'll send selfies of a new outfit and ask, would you date me in this? Like she forgets every single time that I could theoretically date her in anything. So, I said, because the bottle was starting to empty and the air felt thick. Ground rules, you're staying here tonight, couch or bed. She rolled her head towards me. Your couch is a war crime, Maya. It is not. It is, she insisted. My spine still hasn't forgiven you from that horror movie marathon last year. I'll take your bed, and you can take the couch, and I'll owe you like 10 back rubs. That's extortion, I said. But the thought of Jess in my bed, her smell in my pillow, her hair on my sheets, did something disorienting to my stomach. We can share. It's big enough. We've shared worse. We had crappy twin beds on vacation, air mattresses at friends' places, one particularly disastrous camping trip where we'd ended up zipped into the same sleeping bag for warmth, giggling while our teeth chattered. Jess studied me like she was testing to see if I'd flinch. Okay, she said finally. Sharing is fine if you promise not to kick me. You're the kicker, I said, but my mouth felt dry. We migrated to my bedroom in a blur of clinking glasses and bad jokes. Jess borrowed one of my t shirts, an old concert tee that fell to mid thigh on her. Seeing her in it did not make it easier to remember that we were just two friends sharing a bed, like always. I changed in the bathroom, staring at myself in the mirror a beat too long. My dark hair was a mess, waves frizzing at the edges from the humidity. My brown skin looked tired, dark circles under my eyes, but there was a flush high on my cheeks that I couldn't blame on the wine alone. Get a grip, I muttered at my reflection. You are not going to try anything with your freshly heartbroken best friend, you absolute gremlin. When I came out, Jess was already in bed, propped up against the pillows, scrolling listlessly through her phone. My fairy lights cast a soft, golden glow over her freckled face. Do you think I'm broken? She asked suddenly, not looking up. The question hit me square in the chest. What? I climbed into the other side of the bed, careful to keep a polite distance, creating a little Switzerland of untouched mattress between us. Why would you even say that? She locked her phone and set it aside, staring at the ceiling. I just keep ending up with guys who treat me like I'm an inconvenience, she said, like I'm too much, too emotional, too clingy. Maybe that's what I am. I turned onto my side to face her. Want the honest answer? No, she said, then sighed. Yes. You're intense, I said, curling my hands under my cheek. You feel everything deeply. You show up for people. You call at 2 in the morning when you find out your friend's grandma died. You bring cupcakes to coworkers on their last day. You fall hard. That doesn't make you broken. It just means you've been giving all that to people who don't deserve it. She blinked, eyes glistening. Why do you like me? She asked quietly. I mean, you know I'm a mess. You've seen all of it. Why are you still here? The question was so earnest it stripped all the easy jokes from my tongue. Because I've been in love with you in one form or another since you spilled coffee on your econ textbook and cried about it. Because your laugh rearranged my internal furniture the first time I heard it. Because even when you're infuriating, you're never boring. I like you, I said slowly, feeling the words like stepping stones under my feet. Because you're stubborn and ridiculous and you care about things. You make my life less beige. And because when you're happy, it's like being in the same room as the sun. She laughed, a small, incredulous sound that turned wet at the edges. That's so gay, she said. I snorted. Rude. You're the one who asked. Jess rolled onto her side to face me. The space between us shrank to about a pillow's width. I could see the faint constellation of freckles on her nose, the tiny scar on her eyebrow from when she fell off her bike at 12. Her hazel eyes searched my face. Do you ever wish you weren't, you know, she gestured vaguely in my direction. By, like, life would be simpler if you just liked one gender? The question caught me off guard. I'd told her I was bisexual 5 years ago on her balcony, two half warm beers between us, and the city yawned out below. At the time, she'd said, "That's cool. I mean, it's more options, right?" And we never really revisited it. Sometimes, I admitted. Not because I don't like being bi, I do. It's just the confusion from other people gets old. The pick a side comments, the assumptions. But liking people, regardless of gender, I don't wish that away. It feels like part of how I'm wired. She nodded slowly. Have you ever, with a girl? I smiled faintly. Jess. What? She wrinkled her nose. I'm allowed to ask. We're in a girl talk, bisexual edition. Yes, I said. I've dated women, kissed women, that whole deal. Jess absorbed this, eyes flicking down to my mouth for the briefest moment before darting back up. It might have been the wine, it might have been my imagination. It felt like someone turned the volume up on the air between us. What's it like? She asked softly. With a woman, I mean. Is it different? Yes, I said before my brain could edit. And no, it's still two people trying to figure each other out. But there's something about being with someone who understands what it feels like to move through the world as a woman, the way you're looked at, dismissed, desired, all of it. It feels safer sometimes, softer. Her throat bobbed as she swallowed. It sounds nice, she said. I tried to keep my voice light. You could date a woman, you know. There's no rule that says you can't. She let out a humorless laugh. Please. I'm a disaster with men. Imagine me confusing some poor woman. Also, I'm straight. Tragically, annoyingly straight. I didn't say what I was thinking. That most straight girls I know don't bring up what it's like to be with a woman in that particular tone or look at my mouth like that. Right, I said instead, tragically. We fell quiet. Outside, a siren wailed distantly. The fairy lights hummed softly. Jess shifted closer, just a fraction, so that the heat from her body seeped across the small Switzerland of mattress and warmed my bare arm. Can I? She started, then stopped. Can I just be here like this? I don't want to be alone. I exhaled. Yeah, I said. Come here. She scooted the rest of the way, closing the gap between us. Our knees bumped. She hesitated for a second, then curled into me, laying her head on my chest like it was the most natural thing in the world. I froze, then forced myself to relax, wrapping one arm around her shoulders, hand resting lightly on her upper arm. Her arm slid over my waist. There, I said, trying to ignore the thundering of my heart. Not alone. She sighed, long and shuddering. Her fingers flexed on my t-shirt like she was trying to anchor herself. You're the only person I feel safe with right now, she murmured, words slurring just a bit from exhaustion. You know that? A lump lodged in my throat. Yeah, I managed. Same. We talked a bit more, but our words started stretching out, getting slower. Her breathing evened against my ribs. At some point, my hand found its way into her hair, fingers combing through the auburn waves almost absently. It was soft and slightly tangled. I felt her relax, the tension slowly draining from her shoulders. I don't remember falling asleep. I just remember moments, the sound of cars outside, the way her legs tangled with mine, the faint scent of citrus from her shampoo, then nothing, and then morning. Back in my sunlit bedroom with my arm still wrapped around her, everything felt sharper. My senses were dialed up. Her skin was warm against mine through the thin cotton of our t-shirts. Her breath ghosted across my collarbone in little puffs. My hand, that traitor, was resting on the bare skin of her hip where the shirt had ridden up. I should move, I thought, before she wakes up and freaks out, before you freak her out. But my body refused the command. It was like trying to peel a sticker off too fast. The thought of separating from her made my chest ache. Jess stirred, nuzzling closer for a second before freezing the way I had. I felt her hand, splayed across my stomach, tense. Maya? She mumbled, voice rough with sleep. Yeah? My mouth was dry. She shifted just enough to look up at me. Her hair was a mess, strands stuck to her cheek. Her mascara had left faint shadows under her eyes. She had pillow marks on one side of her face. I thought she'd never looked more lovely. Are we cuddling? She asked, like the word puzzled her. Technically, I said, striving for casual. You kind of attacked me in your sleep. She blinked, then glanced down at the way we were entwined. Her leg over mine, my hand on her hip, her fingers bunched in my shirt. I'm sorry, she blurted, starting to pull away. I didn't mean to. It's okay, I said quickly, tightening my arm just a bit before I could think better of it. Really, it's fine. You were asleep. I didn't mind. She stopped moving. Her eyes flicked back to my face. You didn't? She asked. I swallowed. It felt like there was something lodged in my throat that I hadn't coughed up in 10 years. No, I said finally. I didn't. Silence stretched between us, thick and humming. The air felt like it had last night after she'd asked about women, charged. Can I ask you something? Jess said. Yeah. She searched my face, nervousness flickering across hers. If I weren't straight, she began slowly, and if you didn't just like guys, would this be weird or would it be something else? I finished for her. She nodded, cheeks flushing. I exhaled, a shaky breath that felt like it took half my ribs with it. Jess, I said gently, I don't just like guys, remember? I know, she made a frustrated noise. I mean, yes, I know. I just never really, I don't know, I thought it was like theoretical, like a fun fact about you. I didn't think about it in relation to me. Okay, I said, smiling despite the way my heart was pounding. Well, it's not theoretical. It's very real. She bit her lip, looking suddenly younger and very, very human. What if it's not theoretical for me either? She blurted. My brain blanked. What? I don't know, she rushed on, words tumbling over each other. I've always just dated guys, so I assumed, straight, done and dusted, case closed. But the older I get, the more I don't know, sometimes I look at women and it's not just like, oh, she's pretty. It's more like, I want to know what her mouth feels like against mine. And then I freak out and shove that thought into a box and light it on fire. And then there's you. My heart did a very undignified flip. Me? She groaned, burying her face in my shoulder for a second before forcing herself to look at me again. You make everything complicated, she said almost accusingly. You're my favorite person. You're also very pretty and infuriating. And when you're nice to me, like you were last night, my brain goes weird. And waking up like this, it doesn't feel like just cuddling with a friend, at least not to me. And I don't know what that means for you or for me or for anything. Her words hung between us, trembling. If this were a TikTok, this would be where the audio cut out and the caption popped up. POV, your straight best friend is maybe not that straight. It means, I said slowly, choosing each word like it might explode, that maybe you're not as straight as you thought, and that's okay. And it means that I have been trying very hard not to think about how good this feels because I didn't want to make you uncomfortable or take advantage of you being sad and wine drunk and vulnerable. But I also don't feel like this is just friend cuddling. Her eyes widened, hope and fear warring in them. You don't? She whispered. I shook my head. No. Her gaze dropped to my mouth again, lingering there. I could feel the exact moment she decided something. Can I? She started, then faltered. If I ask you something and you can totally say no, and I'll pretend it never happened, okay? Okay, I said, my own voice barely a whisper. Can I kiss you? She asked, just to see if it feels like how I think it might. My brain flooded with white noise. Every sensible part of me screamed that this was risky. She was fresh off a breakup. She was questioning. She might change her mind and I could lose her. But the look in her eyes, earnest, scared, wanting, cut through the noise. Yes, I said, surprising myself with how steady it came out. You can. She moved slowly, giving me all the time in the world to back away. Her hand slipped up from my waist to rest against my jaw, fingers warm and a little shaky. Her face inched closer. I could see every fleck of green in her hazel eyes, every freckle across her nose. My heart was pounding so hard I was half convinced she could feel it against her chest. When her lips finally touched mine, it wasn't fireworks or angels singing. It was something quieter, deeper, like a key turning in a lock I'd been leaning against for years without realizing it. The kiss was soft, tentative. She pressed her mouth to mine and then paused, like she was checking in without words. I responded carefully, kissing her back, keeping it gentle, the way I would with something fragile and brand new. Her breath caught, and I felt her smile, just a little, against my lips. After a few seconds, minutes, she pulled back, eyes wide, pupils blown. We stared at each other, both breathing a little faster. Oh, she said. Oh, I echoed, terrified and exhilarated. I. She broke into a disbelieving laugh, covering her mouth with her hand. That felt not straight. Relief crashed through me, so intense it almost made me dizzy. I laughed with her, nerves fizzing. No, I agreed. Not very straight at all. She lowered her hand, her expression softening. I'm sorry it took me so long to admit that I might like you like this, she said. You must think I'm an idiot. I don't, I said. I think you're figuring yourself out. It took me a while too, remember? There's no timeline. She nodded slowly, then glanced down at where our bodies were still tangled. What happens now? She asked. The question was too big for a morning where my breath still tasted like sleep and last night's wine, where the city was just waking up outside and we had crusty eyes and bed hair. We don't have to decide everything right now, I said. You just got out of a relationship and you're questioning a big part of who you are. We can take it slow, talk about it, set boundaries, fix coffee first, maybe. She smiled, the first real smile I'd seen on her since she stepped through my door the night before. Coffee sounds good, she said. She hesitated, then added, Can we still cuddle while we figure it out? I looked at her, at this girl, this woman I'd loved in a dozen different ways over a decade, wrapped up in my sheets and my t shirt and my life, asking to stay. Yeah, I said, tightening my arm around her and pressing a quick, chaste kiss to her forehead. We can definitely still cuddle. Later, there would be more conversations. There would be overthinking and doubt, and moments where she'd back away a little, scared of what this meant for her, for us. There would be nights where we'd sit on my balcony, passing a mug of tea back and forth, talking about labels and attraction and what it meant that she now noticed women's hands as much as men's shoulders. But that morning, we just lay there a little longer in the pale light, wrapped around each other like we'd found a position we'd always been meant to sleep in. The world beyond my bedroom door waited, messy, complicated, loud. In here, Jess's breath was steady against my neck. My hand rested on her hip, fingers drawing idle patterns on her skin. When she tilted her face up to look at me, her eyes were clear. The redness faded. Hey, Maya, she said softly. Yeah? I think, she said, sounding like she was trying the words on for size, I might be a little bit in love with you. Is that okay? My chest went warm and bright and unbearably full. Yeah, I said, my voice coming out a little choked. That's very okay. She smiled, tucked her head back under my chin, and we let the day start around us, slowly. Two women who were no longer pretending their butterflies were platonic.